Drano's back at it again, bringing you another video. So something a little bit different that I'm doing here on my channel. It's not a gameplay video by any means, but I figured with today, we're only a couple days away from the start of the NFL draft coming up on Thursday. So I figured I'd go ahead and just kind of give you guys my thoughts on the teams and where they're picking at in their positions, and as far as who I think is going to be picked where in this case. So gonna go ahead and take a look and really just kind of give you my thoughts as far as where each player is gonna go. Basically just gonna give you my prediction for the first round. So as you guys could see, we're taking a look. You guys could see we're taking a look at the first pick here, the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, at this point, it's kind of a given as far as who is going to be the first pick in the draft. And for you guys that are curious as far as what website I'm using, where you're actually able to record able to do your own version of the mock draft, it's called thedraftnetwork.com. So if you guys want to go ahead and check that out, I'll drop the link down below just so you can play around. It actually allows you to do trades here also, but it looks like that's for premium. So I mean, obviously there's going to be some trades, but we can't really account for that in this mock. So we'll just go based off what we have. But obviously, Cincinnati Bengals going to go ahead and draft Joe Burrow, quarterback from LSU. That's pretty much a given there. In this case, obviously everyone's kind of consensus number one pick is Joe Burrow. So that's the first pick. Next pick we've got is the Washington Redskins. Obviously this is another given. A lot of people have Chase Young in this slot. But for me, to be honest with you, I'm a big fan of Isaiah Simmons. He's definitely someone that's just, from what I've seen from watching college football, he definitely just flies around at that linebacker position. Reminds me a lot of Luke Kuechly, to be honest, in terms of how he plays. He just has a nose for the football. Plus, he's the type of guy that you can kind of scheme around where you can, put him at multiple positions. He's pretty much like a Swiss Army knife. But, I mean, obviously in this case, I mean, you can't pass up on Chase Young. I mean, a lot of people have him as the best overall player in the draft. So, I'm going to go ahead, take Chase Young with the number 2 pick going to the Washington Redskins here. Now, number 3 pick, the Detroit Lions here. Interesting pick right here because a lot of people have either the Dolphins or the Chargers trying to trade up to get one of the quarterbacks in this case. And as you guys can see, I mean, obviously the Lions, they need cornerbacks as well as edge, just because they went ahead and traded Darius Slay to the Eagles. A lot of people thought, have Jeffrey Okudah slotted into this position, and with good reason. I mean, he is the best corner in as far as coming out of college. But to be honest, though, like it to me is kind of curious. I mean, like, you traded Darius Slay, your best corner, and you're drafting Jeffrey Okudah. In my opinion, that's a downgrade. The only reason why I would do that is because, the fact that you weren't going to pay for Darius Slay, so obviously Okudah is a cheaper option. Part of me wants to give the Lions Isaiah Simmons, because I think besides Chase Young, Isaiah Simmons is the overall best defender in the draft, but logic states that Jeffrey Okudah is going to go and become a Detroit Lion. So Okudah goes to the Lions. So in this case, next pick, we've got the New York Giants here. Obviously another team that had a lot of needs at this point. They need a tackle, they need a linebacker, and obviously Simmons would fit the bill in that case. But to be honest with you guys, I mean, the Giants have invested so much in that offense with Daniel Jones and with Saquon Barkley that I feel like you have to add to the line, to be honest with you guys. I feel like if the Giants go ahead and take Jedrick Willis out of Alabama, I think he's the type of player that could have a similar impact to what Zach Martin had a couple years ago with the Cowboys when they drafted him and really solidified that line. And, you know, he's the type of guy that is a plug-and-play guy. So this is going to sound crazy because a lot of people want Isaiah Simmons, and he would be kind of the sexy pick in this case. But I think, you know, knowing the future that, you know, and how much you've already invested into the offense, you got to give, you know, Daniel Jones some protection, and then also Saquon Barkley. You got to give him some linemen that are going to be able to build or that are going to be able to open up some lanes for him. So going to go ahead. Probably going to be the first shocker. I'm going to go ahead and give the the New York Giants, I'm going to give them Jedrick Willis. So, next pick we've got is the Miami Dolphins. So, Dolphins, they're definitely, you know, they have 3 first-round picks, which is nice. Definitely a team that has a lot of needs in this case. Obviously, quarterback is kind of the most glaring needs, but they have a lot of holes elsewhere. And see, for me, if I'm the Dolphins, this is a type of pick where I would pick Isaiah Simmons, knowing that Tua and Herbert are still at the top, are going to be in that kind of top 10 range. And then I try to find a way to trade back up, use my last 2 or my mid and late round picks in the first round. Try to trade back up to maybe like the number 8 or 9 slot, because if you think about it, okay, the Chargers, they probably pick one of the quarterbacks. The Panthers, they don't need a quarterback. They just paid Teddy Bridgewater a lot of money. The Cardinals, they just picked Kyler Murray last year. The only other team that I'd really be worried about taking a quarterback is the Jags. I don't think they're sold on Gardner Minshew. So if anything, what I would try to do is I would take Simmons, and then I would try to trade back up with either the Panthers or the Cardinals to jump ahead of those 2 teams, or ahead of the Jags, and take one of the quarterbacks. But in this case, being that we're not able to make a trade, we're just going to go ahead and stand pat. And I'm going to go ahead, and for me, I would pick Justin Herbert just because he doesn't have as much of the health issues. But I think in this case, this is where you have to take a risk and take potential over anything. I think potential-wise, I think Tua does fit the bill. So I'm going to go ahead and give the Miami Dolphins Tua Tagovailoa, quarterback out of Alabama in this case. So next pick we have here is the LA Chargers, who, you know, in this case, I would say they're sitting in a pretty good spot. You know, they're going to get one of the quarterbacks. I mean, for me, though, if I'm the Chargers, I still think that I have a roster that can win now. So I would go out and try to sign like a Cam Newton, because I still think that Cam Newton's got a little bit of life in him. To me, I don't think it would be worth taking one of the. I mean, I think if you had to ask me, would I want Cam Newton or would I want Justin Herbert, I'm easily going Cam Newton without hesitation. So just looking at the board here, you know, we still have Simmons there. We've got CeeDee Lamb, Judy, Derek Brown. Let me just take a look at the predictive board here. So just going based off of what the mock draft machine thinks is going to be taken. So obviously they have Justin Herbert going here. But to be honest with you, I think the Chargers need to go for Cam, because they have a roster that's built to win right now. And I think I might have said this in one of my earlier videos. I feel like the Chargers have a roster that's built to win. I mean, you got Bosa, Ingram. They just signed Chris Harris. I mean, I know they lost Melvin Gordon, but he wasn't really doing a whole lot for them anyway. So this is going to be a shocker here. I'm going to go ahead and give the Chargers Tristan Wirfs, offensive tackle out of Iowa. I think he's going to be a premier starting left tackle for that franchise for years to come. And I think the Chargers, they need to go ahead and go get Cam Newton in this case. So probably the first shocker that you guys are going to see at this point in the draft. But like I said, this is just my opinion. A lot of wild things could happen at this point with trades and whatnot. So coming in with the 7th overall pick, we've got the Carolina Panthers. So they're sitting in a good spot here because they could either trade the pick for one of the teams that still needs a quarterback, which, I mean, it's not many. I mean, obviously the Chargers still do in this case if they wanted to go that route, but I don't think they have a whole lot of draft capital to really try to trade back up all the way up to number 7. And then really other than that, I mean, I think, you know, the Panthers, they're in a good spot because I think they have a lot of good things going on, especially considering all that they've lost, you know, between, you know, Cam Newton and Ron Rivera, who, provided some stability there for a while. So in this case, though, I'm going to go ahead, give the Panthers, in this case, even though it's not necessarily a need in this case. I think in this case, they got to go best available. I think anytime that you see an Isaiah Simmons there to take, you got to go with the best player there. So I'm going to go ahead and give the Panthers Isaiah Simmons. I'm kind of surprised he fell that far in this mock draft in this case. So next pick we've got is the Arizona Cardinals. So Cardinals, again, they're one of those teams that they can trade down in this case. And if you see here, they still have 2 offensive tackles on the board, and they also have Derek Brown, whose name has been, kind of coming up recently. And then also just looking at some of the wide receivers there's tons of wide receivers going into this draft. But I think in this case, you got to get Kyler Murray some help, get him some help on that offensive line. So really, I think it's going to come down to either MEKHI BECTON or Andrew Thomas. So I think in this case, though, a lot of people have been talking about this MEKHI BECTON guy. His name has been coming up, shooting up draft boards since the combine. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead, give the Arizona Cardinals some help on that offensive line, and give them MEKHI BECTON out of Louisville. So next pick we've got is the Jacksonville Jaguars. So kind of hard to believe that the Jaguars a couple years ago were actually in the AFC Championship game and had a chance to go to the Super Bowl. That seemed like such a long time ago in this case. So in this case, it's kind of hard to really kind of gauge where the Jags are at this point. But, they do have 2 first-round picks in here, so they have a lot of things that they can work with. They still have a need at quarterback. Like I said, I'm not sold on Gardner Minshew at this point. They could take Andrew Thomas, offensive tackle out of Georgia. They still have Derek Brown on the board. And really just looking through the rest of the draft, I mean, still not some bad options there. Just looking at the player rankings, they actually have CeeDee Lamb and Jerry Jeudy at the very top. Kind of interested to see that. But I think you need a quarterback before you can actually do that. So I think in this case, knowing that there may be, Andrew Thomas may still be there late in the draft, I'm going to go ahead and stop Justin Herbert's slide here. I'm going to go ahead and put Justin Herbert going to the Jacksonville Jaguars, giving them another option there at quarterback. So next pick we've got here is the Cleveland Browns. So at this case, Baker Mayfield definitely had a disappointing year. Really the team that a lot of people had as their pick to at least win the division and make the playoffs, but unfortunately that was not the case. Looking at their draft slot here at the number 10 pick. And actually, whenever I said that Andrew Thomas was going to fall at this point, actually, I'm not going to lie. I kind of take that back. I completely forgot that the Browns needed some offensive line help. They still got Josh Jones that could go also here, but that would be way too high in that case. And then Isaiah Wilson also, but he's a fringe first rounder at best. So, going to go ahead, give the Cleveland Browns Andrew Thomas, give Baker Mayfield some protection there, and he's going to go ahead and go to Cleveland. So, next pick we've got is the New York Jets. I feel like they've been kind of cursed when it comes to drafts. A lot of people, it's one of those things where, the New York fans either love or hate the pick in this case. The fact that Derek Brown is still there is pretty appeasing, to be honest. I feel like the Jets defense would be nasty if they had him, but I think that's more of a want than an actual need in this case. So just looking as far as the player rankings are concerned, they still have the 2 wide receivers in this case, and then also Brown, Chasen, and then also Henry Ruggs. So I think the Jets need to go ahead and get Sam Darnold some help on the offensive side of the ball, not just kind of determining who goes where. So we got CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy, and Henry Ruggs. I think in this case, Probably the safest pick is probably Jerry Jeudy. I think a lot of people have been clamoring about his, his ability to route, be a good route runner. And I think really, at the wide receiver position, that's kind of the best, the number one thing, one of the best skill traits to have, just so you can kind of create that separation on DBs. So going in at the number 11 pick, I have the New York Jets taking Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver out of Alabama. So next pick we've got is the Las Vegas Raiders. So it's their first of 2 first-round picks that they have coming into the draft. Again, another team that needs wide receivers. So really, I think CeeDee Lamb, Henry Ruggs, and Jerry Jeudy are all kind of interchangeable at this point. I think the Raiders, obviously, they're known for drafting the height, speed, strength guys in this case. To be honest, it would not surprise me if they go out and and try to go for Henry Ruggs. So I think that's who I'm going to give them, Henry Ruggs, just based off of what he's able to do, the ability to stretch the field. I think that's just the typical Raider pick right there. So going to go ahead, give the Raiders a weapon there in Henry Ruggs, the third wide receiver out of Alabama. Next pick we've got is the San Francisco 49ers here. Definitely a team that it scares me because I'm a Seahawks fan, knowing that they have this pick and knowing that they have all the options available to them. I mean, obviously, they could go ahead and pick up a CeeDee Lamb there, which would make sense in that case. But in my opinion, though, the Niners, they're not a team that's really a passing team. They're more of a running team, and then just playing the rollout game with Jimmy Garoppolo. But obviously, kind of in the Super Bowl, he I'll just be flat honest, he folded. Even though they did have that 10-point lead, I think that there were times throughout the year where Jimmy Garoppolo didn't make the throws that he needed to. Granted, it's probably going to come with his development. But I think in this case, especially after trading one of the best defenders in the league in who was it? Was it Buckner that they went ahead and traded? It was either Buckner or Armstead. I'm not exactly sure who exactly it was. But I think in this case, just to replenish that defensive line, because that's really what the Niners kind of pride themselves on, was that defense, and especially on that defensive line. I think they go out and get Derek Brown, defensive tackle out of Auburn, and that's just going to be a nightmare for defense for a defense there. It worries me that the fact that he fell that far in that case. So next pick we've got is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which is kind of surprising to see that Tom Brady actually made the move to Tampa Bay. It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. So as you guys could see, we have CeeDee Lamb still on the board there, so potentially to get a weapon there for Tom Brady. But to be honest, I don't know how that would exactly go with with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and then I don't know who their number 3 receiver is at this point. So I could see CeeDee Lamb fitting in there, but I think again that's more of a want than a need. Obviously, as you guys can see here, the Bucs, they need an offensive tackle, which unfortunately none of them are left on the board. They've also need a running back, but I feel like 14 is too high to make the pick at running back. So I'm kind of torn because I want to give them CeeDee Lamb because he is the highest available. But who else could you go? You could go Chase in there as well. But I feel like their defense is already pretty solid where they don't necessarily need to invest a first round pick. And again, I could see them going CJ Henderson cornerback. But I guess in this case, I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to give the Bucs CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver out of Oklahoma, and just to give Tom Brady just another weapon to work with. That's crazy. Those three wide receivers are going to be scary with Tom Brady there. So coming in at the number 15th pick, we've got the Denver Broncos, who I'm pretty sure are disappointed that CeeDee Lamb did not drop to them when they had the chance there. So at this point, their other needs are cornerback, offensive tackle, linebacker, a lot of needs that they have there. I'm not exactly sure why they have quarterback there because I feel like Drew Lock is their future, at least for now anyway. So I think at this point it really comes down to either Henderson or Chasen, but I think especially with Chris Harris Jr. Departing for the LA Chargers, I think that's just going to be a guy that's going to be able to plug and play right there. So coming in at the number 15th pick, we're going to go ahead and give the Broncos CJ Henderson, cornerback out of Florida. Next pick we've got is the Atlanta Falcons. So again, another team who's just one pick too late. I'm pretty sure they would have loved to have had CJ Henderson at that point. But, you know, they have the opportunity to go get Chasen or Christian Fulton. I think those are kind of the two guys that they could get at that point. I think it's really a toss-up, really. But I think in this case, Falcons go best available, take Chasen, going to be a linebacker for that Atlanta defense who desperately needs it. I feel like their defense has been kind of shaky over the last year or so, but I think this is some good juice to put him. Plus, he actually gets to play with Deion Jones, who was another LSU alum there. So I feel like that's a good fit in that case. So going to go ahead, go Chasen from LSU going to the Falcons. So next pick we've got is the Dallas Cowboys. They lost a lot. You know, they lost Byron Jones, who was one of their best defenders on that defense. And then really at this point, you know, they have a lot of needs on that defense. They have cornerback, edge rusher, safety. I'm surprised. I mean, looking at the defensive tackle, I'm not exactly sure who their defensive tackle is at this point, but you know, a couple guys that I could see going in this slot include Xavier McKinney. Christian Fulton would be nice to replace Byron Jones. Javon Kinlaw would be monstrous on that D-line, I think, along with DeMarcus Lawrence. But I think in this case, I'm going to go ahead and give the Cowboys a replacement for Byron Jones. Going to go ahead and give them Christian Fulton, cornerback out of LSU. As you guys can see there. Going to go ahead and give them that replacement for Byron Jones in this case. So next pick we've got is the Miami Dolphins, coming up again with their second of 3 first-round picks in this draft. So they're sitting in a good spot. They got their quarterback. They got that knocked out of the way. But as you guys can see here, you know, still a lot of needs on this team. I don't think they cook running back quite yet. I still feel like 18 is kind of high to get running back. So looking at the board here, we've got Xavier McKinney still. And let's just take a look at the predictive board, see what they have here. They've got Javon Kinlaw, Grant Delpit, who I'm a big fan of, and then just looking at some of the other offensive players that they have here. So I would say kind of in talent-wise, just a slight drop-off here. So I think in this case, especially with the type of defense that, what's his name? The Dolphins coach, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank here, but he likes to have a very versatile defense where he can switch from 3-4 to 4-3. I think, you know, part of me wants to give him Kinlaw, but then I forgot they drafted defensive tackle in the first round last year from Clemson. So I think Kinlaw would be more of a luxury in that case. So I think really in this case it's going to come down to either safety or maybe trade down and maybe take one of the tackles here. But because we can't do trades, I'm going to go ahead and give them Xavier McKinney, safety, to replace, because I think they went ahead and cut Rashad Jones, so he would just slide in day one and probably be a starter at that case. So to his teammate actually also. So Xavier McKinney going to the Miami Dolphins. So next pick we've got is the Las Vegas Raiders coming in with their second first-round pick in the draft. Got a couple big names here still. We've got Kinlaw, Delpit, Jefferson, Swift, DeAndre Swift, and then just looking through the rest of the first round here. You know, part of me wants to give them Javon Kinlaw. I feel like that would make the most sense. But in the back of my mind, part of me wants to also go out and give them their quarterback of the future, Jordan Love, just because I feel like in this case, you know, Derek Carr is just not the answer. But I think with this high of a pick, I don't think you can go with Jordan Love, at least as of now. So just going to go with the move that would make the most sense logically, and I'm going to go ahead and give them the Las Vegas Raiders, Javon Kinlaw, defensive tackle from South Carolina in this case. So nice pick for them, especially, because a lot of people have him going maybe like top 10 or top 12 in that case. So next pick we've got is the Jacksonville Jaguars, again, with their second first-round pick in this case. They already got their quarterback. They got Justin Herbert in that case. So taking a look as what is still left on the board, we still got Grant Delpit, got a wide receiver in Justin Jefferson. And just looking through the rest of the board here, still a lot of good talent in this case. Let's just take a look at the player rankings, and they actually have J.K. Dobbins ranked as the highest player available, so kind of interesting there. I think in this case, it wouldn't surprise me if this was a pick that the Jags decided to trade down. I just don't think a lot of these guys are, justifiable, or at least at this high. Maybe towards the end of the first round, yes. But in this case, since we're not able to, I'm going to go ahead and give the Jaguars, to me, I think it's either between Grant Delpit or Justin Jefferson. But I think in this case, especially since you have a new quarterback, you need to get him some help, get him some offensive help. And the Jags, can you name a wide receiver on their roster? I don't think I can. So let's go ahead and give them Justin Jefferson, wide receiver out of LSU. Give them a nice weapon there to make some plays. So coming in at number 21, got the Philadelphia Eagles. So looking through here, their needs don't necessarily match what is still available going into the draft. A lot of people have talked about maybe the Eagles trading up to get one of the wide receivers because that's one of their biggest needs. But just looking through, I don't see, we can actually break it down by positions. So we still have Denzel Mims, who is a name that, a lot of people have been talking about recently as well. Just looking at linebacker, they've got Patrick Queen, Kenneth Murray. Those are two viable options there. Let's see, cornerbacks, let's take a look here. Yeah, I don't think any of these cornerbacks are first-round material, at least in my opinion. Maybe Trayvon Diggs is the only name that I'm kind of familiar with, but I don't think he's going to go first round. And then really just looking through the rest, it says they need edge, so they could get a Gross Matos or AJ Epinesa. But I think in this case, the Eagles, they desperately need some help at wide receiver. So I think in this case, they're going to go ahead, pick Denzel Mims, wide receiver out of Baylor. I think it's kind of a reach, but, considering, kind of the drop-off, I think, after Mims, I think really it's going to force the Eagles' hand to go out and pick Denzel Mims, who, still a good playmaker. I just think if they skip out on him, they're not going to be able to get another playmaker in the first round that could at least fit what they're looking for. I was thinking either wide receiver or linebacker, just because their linebacker core was kind of bad last year. So, but that's who I have the Eagles picking. I have them picking Denzel Mims, wide receiver out of Baylor. So, coming in, next pick, we've got the Minnesota Vikings with their first pick. It's they need cornerbacks, wide receivers to replace Stephon Diggs from the who they just traded to the Buffalo Bills. So just looking at the board here, they could pick Josh Jones potentially just to get Kirk Cousins some help because I think their offensive line's kind of bad, to be honest with you. And then really, other than that, again, it's just kind of a drop-off in terms of what is available and what they're looking for. Wide receiver, Jalen Reagor, they're saying that based off his ranking, he's more of like a second-round grade. I'm not too familiar with him. And then just looking at cornerbacks, again, I don't think, and most of these guys are first-round material, in my opinion. I haven't seen all of them play, so I could be wrong. And then looking at edge, I could see them picking one of these guys, either Gross Matos or Epinesa, or, Terrell Lewis, Alabama, Zach Braun. I could see them going any of these guys. And let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to go ahead and give the Vikings one of these edge players. I'm going to go ahead and give them Yetur Gross Matos from Penn State. I feel like that's a plug-and-play guy who's going to be able to fit in right away, especially to replace Everson Griffin. At that point, I feel like that's a good fit there. So, the team that is going to have the biggest question marks going into this game, or this draft, the New England Patriots, who are moving on in the post-Tom Brady era. Going to be interesting to see what happens here. Honestly, there's been rumors of them trying to trade their draft or some of their draft to go ahead and get Deshaun Watson, which if that happens and the NFL's canceled, I would lose my mind if that happened. But I think in this case, I mean, let's be real. As much as they want to talk about how the quarterback that they have now from Auburn, I'm just terrible with names right now. Jarrett Stidham. As much as they want to talk about how he is talent-wise, I don't think he's the answer, to be honest with you. So I think in this point, a lot of people have either Fromm or Eason going to them, but I think, you go based off potential. So I think and there's not really any wide receiver or edge players still left that would make sense. So I feel like in this case, being that it is their biggest needs, the New England Patriots are going to select Jordan Love, quarterback out of Utah State. So next pick we've got is the New Orleans Saints. So again, another team that, a lot of people thought that they were going to be the Super Bowl pick for the NFC, but obviously they're kind of cursed, to be honest, here at this point. So in this case, looking at their needs, their biggest need is linebacker or cornerback. And so just looking through here, they've got Patrick Queen still left on the board, as well as Gladney, that are given more, based off their rankings, first-round grades. So really, I think it comes down to them. I've seen a lot of people say Kenneth Murray is a good fit with the Saints as well. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and give them best available, give them Patrick Queen, who's actually staying in New Orleans. He's actually staying in Louisiana and going to the New Orleans Saints. So next pick we've got is the Vikings again with their second first-round selection here. So they've got their edge player to replace Everson Griffin. Really, in this case, I don't think they're that far away from competing for a Super Bowl. I mean, granted, Kirk Cousins has a lot to do with it, but I think other than that, all the other pieces around him are solid. So in this case, they could take cornerback, take Gladney, but I think if I'm not mistaken, they still have Mike Hughes. So I think that would be a good pairing. Gladney, a guy who, at least from what I'm seeing on here, is highly regarded. He's from the Big 12, played at TCU, so he's definitely used to playing those more spread offenses there. Ran a 4.3 at the combine or at some TCU camp here, so seems like a guy that's more based off potential in this case. So while I don't know too much about him, I'm gonna go ahead and give them. I'm gonna go ahead and put slot Gladney going to the Vikings in this slot, just to give them another guy to put opposite of Mike Hughes. Next pick we've got is the Dolphins coming in with their last pick in the first round. I think in this case it's going to be a running back, as you guys can see based off the rankings there. I think in this case it's probably going to be, I'm torn because I wouldn't mind having these running backs for the next pick because I'm actually a Seahawks fan. But again, we don't really necessarily need a running back, but in this case, I think the Dolphins, it's really a toss-up between J.K. Dobbins and DeAndre Swift, but I think a lot of people have DeAndre Swift regarded as the best running back in the draft, so I'm going to go ahead and give the Dolphins DeAndre Swift, running back out of Georgia. So the first running back that goes off the board in the first round here. So next pick coming up is my Seattle Seahawks. So a lot of people doubted this team as far as how far they could get last year, but obviously Russell Wilson being Russell Wilson is the type of guy that can elevate his team no matter what talent he has around him. Obviously their biggest need is edge because it's still kind of up in the air in terms of bringing back Jadeveon Clowney. I hope they do bring him back, but obviously, at a reasonable cost as well. Could go offensive line here. Honestly, I think what's going to happen, just because I'm a Seahawks fan, so I've seen it happen a lot, is they're probably going to trade down from this pick, to be honest with you. I've seen it happen just way too often as a Seahawks fan. I'd love to get Jonathan Taylor because he's actually a big fan, but I don't think he will go in the first round, or at least I wouldn't reach that far, especially considering how we just drafted Rashad Penny a couple years ago with our first round pick, the last time we had one, I think. So I think in this case, I think you got to get the secondary some help. The secondary was atrocious. I think they can do some things in free agency and hopefully bring back Clowney. So I think if they bring back Clowney, they go Grant Delpit. If not, then I think they go AJ Epinesa. But my fingers crossed that they do bring back Clowney just on a 1-year deal to prove it again, and then to test out the free agency once the salary cap goes up. I'm going to go ahead. I have the Seahawks drafting Grant Delpit, safety out of LSU. So a good talent there in that case. So coming up towards the latter end of the draft, we've got the Baltimore Ravens. So it looks like they need linebackers, wide receiver, and edge. I think in this case, the name that probably makes the most sense, it's either AJ Epinesa or Zach Braun. I think Zach Braun would be good if they just want a guy that can run sideline to sideline and make tackles. That's just what I've seen from watching him. But I think in this case where it would help the Ravens, especially since they did not get I'm losing names again. They didn't get a whole lot of help in terms of the D-line. So I'm going to go ahead and give them AJ Epinesa, edge rusher out of Iowa. And then coming up, the Tennessee Titans, who surprisingly, they made that run going all the way to the AFC Championship game last year. Seeing what they could do here, they don't need a running back. They still got Derrick Henry there. Offensive tackle was obviously a big need since they lost. I believe it was it wasn't Conklin. I think it was the other tackle that they had. I'm so bad with names. I apologize, guys. So they could also take Kenneth Murray. That's another name that I could see. But I think in this case, they need to replace their offensive lineman that they lost from. I think he went to Cleveland. I'm just so bad with names. I can't believe I'm not. Actually, I think it was actually Conklin that went to the Browns. Let me just take a look because that's bothering me. So yeah, so Conklin did go to the Browns. So yeah, that's an easy pick. I think they go ahead and take Josh Jones, offensive tackle from Houston, to replace him. So coming in at the last couple picks, we've got the Green Bay Packers here. Again, this could be a pick where I could see them trading down, to be honest. But I think in this case, just looking at what's in terms of the player rankings, still got J.K. Dobbins there, but I don't think he's going to go. I mean, they have Aaron Jones there. So I'm going to go ahead and give the Packers some offensive line help with CESAR RUIZ, offensive lineman from Michigan. So let's go ahead and slot him there. And then, got to do this quick here, just because I do have to run here. So, San Francisco 49ers, their second pick in the first round here. I think in this case, it wouldn't surprise me if they traded out. But, they do still have a need there at wide receiver. I feel like in this case, and I completely forgot about this name, Laviska Shenault Jr., wide receiver from Colorado. I think he makes a lot of sense there. Towards the end of the first round, like I said, I think between the top three receivers and the rest, there's kind of a drop-off there. So I think that would be a good weapon for them to have there to develop. So going to go ahead and give them wide receiver Laviska Shenault Jr., wide receiver from Colorado. And then the defending world champion Kansas City Chiefs coming in. Again, this is another pick where I feel like they could trade out of and just get more picks here, considering how they're going to have to pay Patrick Mahomes, so they definitely want to surround him with cheap talent in this case. They could take one of the running backs. I know a lot of people have talked about them getting running back. They could get Kenneth Murray. But I think just to go ahead and just top off and give them probably the most explosive offense we've seen in a while, I'm going to go ahead and give the Kansas City Chiefs J.K. Dobbins to round out the first round in this draft. So this is what we've got here, just to kind of recap what we have so far, guys. If you guys did enjoy the video, I'd appreciate you guys hitting that like button. Just something a little bit different, just to try to give you guys some hype going into the draft. If you guys, like I said, if you guys enjoyed it, hit that like button. And if you guys are wanting more videos like this, let me know. Maybe I could use Madden to kind of put these guys in, based off my predictions and see what happens in the season. So, and also, of course, if you guys are looking forward to more content like this, consider subscribing to the channel as well. And until the next one, guys, this is Dre Knows, and I'm signing out. Peace.